everyone, and welcome to Inside Archaeology, the YouTube channel giving you a sneak peek inside history's mysteries. Today, we are exploring the latest exciting archaeological news and discoveries from February 2025. Yes, that is correct. Archaeologists are still making groundbreaking discoveries all the time. However, since your newsfeed might have decided not to show them to you, I have used my years of experience as an archaeologist to carefully research and put together this video in order to provide you with well-sourced, interesting, and accurate news about real archaeology. No pseudoscience or clickbait here. I've got an exciting lineup for you this month, as always, from new excavations of the Great Wall of China, pushing back its earliest construction date by 300 years, to the world's oldest rune stone found in several fragments spread across multiple graves in Norway, and a gold Roman box lock found by a metal detectorist in Germany, which is notable for the fact that it's smaller than this pound coin that I hold in my hand here. Oh, and I almost forgot. We also have an interview with Dr. Judith Bunbury, Cambridge University professor and co-director of the project that found the tomb of King Thutmose II in Egypt. You might have heard mention of this already in the headlines. Well, we're going straight to the source to hear about this amazing discovery. If all of this sounds like it's right up your trench, then stay tuned to find out more as I delve into these captivating stories from our past. Don't forget to take a few seconds to subscribe or like to help support the channel and tell the algorithm to promote it to new viewers. If you're feeling extra generous, please consider making a Ko-fi donation, a super thanks, or looking at my Redbubble store for some archaeology merch designed by myself. Okay, everyone, let's dig in. We have 9 stories today in our top discoveries segment, which I will be covering in chronological order, starting with those going farthest back in time. We begin today with new insights into the origins of the Indo-European language family, which consists of over 400 languages, including Hellenic, Germanic, Slavic, Indo-Iranian, and Celtic. And all of these are spoken by nearly half of the world's population today. Since the 19th century, historians and linguists have been investigating the origins of this language family and its spread across Eurasia. Now, a new study has combined linguistics and ancient DNA analysis to try and find an answer. Researchers looked at the DNA of 435 individuals from archaeological sites across Eurasia dating to between 6400 and 2000 BCE. Earlier genetic studies had shown that the Yamnaya culture expanded into both Europe and Central Asia around 3100 BCE. Accounting for the appearance of steppe ancestry in human populations across Eurasia and creating the largest effect on European human genomes of any demographic event in the last 5,000 years. This is widely regarded as the probable vector for the spread of Indo-European languages. However, the Anatolian branch of the family, which includes the Hittite language, does not exhibit any steppe ancestry and is thought to be the oldest branch to split away from the original, uniquely preserving linguistic acronyms that were lost in all other language branches. Previous studies had not found steppe ancestry among the Hittites because, the new paper argues, the Anatolian languages were descended from a language spoken by a group that had not been adequately described before, an Neolithic population that dates to around 4500 to 3500 BCE, and which is located in the steppes between the northern Caucasus Mountains and the lower Volga River. When the genetics of this newly recognized Caucasus Lower Volga, or CLV, population are used as a source, at least 5 individuals in Anatolia that date to before or during the Hittite era show CLV ancestry. The new study also shows the Yamnaya population derived about 80% of its ancestry from the CLV group, which also provided at least 1/10 of the ancestry of Bronze Age Central Anatolians speakers of Hittite. Therefore, this cultural group can be connected to all Indo-European speaking populations and is the best candidate for the population that spoke Indo-Anatolian, the ancestor of both the Hittite and all later Indo-European languages. This discovery of the missing link in the Indo-European story marks a turning point in the 200-year-old quest to reconstruct the origins of this language family and the routes by which these people spread across Europe and parts of Asia. Our next discovery is from the Chupacigarro site in Peru, where recent archaeological work has identified a new pyramidal building. The Corral culture flourished between 3000 and 1800 BCE and is the oldest of the pre-Hispanic civilizations, developing 1500 years earlier than the Olmecs, the first Mesoamerican complex society. The sacred city of Carol Supe was its primary city and influenced subsequent Andean cultures with its urban planning and architectural innovations. Situated in a small ravine, Chupacigarro is just 1 kilometer west of Carol Supe and was part of a larger network of settlements in the Supe Valley, serving as a key point along a communication route that linked the valley to the Huara coast, enabling trade and resource exchange. Now, recent excavations in Sector F of the site have uncovered a pyramidal structure that was hidden beneath dense undergrowth and trees. Once the vegetation was removed, stone walls that make up at least 3 superimposed platforms were revealed. These walls are distinguished by large vertically placed stones, which are called huancas. These stones mark the corners of the quadrangular building and the central staircase that allowed access to the summit, an architectural feature typical of the Corral civilization. There were no dates or period for this pyramid given in the press release or any of the media that I could find for it. So since nearby Carol Supe was occupied from 2600 to 1800 BCE, all I can really say at this point is that this pyramid is potentially between 3800 to 4600 years old, which puts it roughly on par with the pyramids in Egypt. Research into this new building will hopefully yield more exact dates as well as help archaeologists to fully understand the urban layout of the Chupacigarro settlement. Our third exciting discovery for this month comes from Egypt, where the first royal tomb in the Valley of the Kings since that of King Tutankhamun has been identified by the New Kingdom Research Foundation. Belonging to Thutmose II, predecessor and husband to his more famous sister King Hatshepsut, this has caused quite a splash in the headlines, and I'm very excited to say that I had a chance to speak to project co-director and geoarchaeologist Dr. Judith Bunbury about this amazing find earlier this week. Let's dig into the interview. Okay, so welcome to the channel, Dr. Bunbury. It's a pleasure to have you here, especially to talk about this really exciting discovery that you and your team have made in Egypt. I'm going to launch right into my first question, which is, how did you become involved in this project and what is your role?
So I'm a deputy director of the project, and the director, Piers Litherland, was a student of mine at Cambridge. He came as a mature student, and then he set up his own excavation.
Oh, that's really exciting. That must be lovely to work with him.
It is. It's great to work with a former student, and it's also been lovely seeing other students who've joined the mission develop and go on to great things.
So what is the New Kingdom Research Foundation working on exactly in Luxor / the Valley of the Kings area?
Yeah, so what we've been working on is understanding the history and the climate and landscape of the New Kingdom in more detail. So sort of period about 3 to 3,500 years ago. Some of the New Kingdom sites that are quite famous are the Valley of the Kings and the Valley of the Queens, and we've been exploring the less known western part of the same mountain. So in antiquity, the mountain was thought of as a holy mountain. Locally in the villages, it's still known as the Holy Mountain, so that there's been quite a lot of continuity there. And it's where people wanted to be buried and kind of have the best chance of making it through the afterlife.
So in that vein, can you tell us what you guys have discovered?
So we've been working at the sort of cemeteries in wadis that don't have very inspiring names. So things like Wadi 300, Wadi A, B, and C, which gives you a sense that they're not really thought of as particular places. And what we've been finding is quite a lot of tombs of royal women, including in Wadi Baria, 17 queens and princesses. And we found some royal retainers. So in Ebony, the bearer of the king's weapons. People are known from texts, but are, sort of more bit parts in the royal court. It's a very interesting finding and reconstructing their lives. Part of what we do, some of the tombs have already been opened and explored in antiquity or even looted in the past. So we go and try and tidy up, find out as much as we can, record as much as we can. We use that sort of piece back there, about their biographies back together. And one of the things you often find around the tombs is foundation deposits. That's one of the things we've been sort of tidying up and looking for and describing. and so we found the tomb of Thutmose II completely by surprise.
That was going to lead into my next question, which is it a surprise or what you expected? Because I had read that I think it had been found previously, but it's only just been identified now. Can you elaborate a bit further?
Yeah, so a year or so ago, we were excavating looking for foundation deposits. They're normally sort of round or oval pits. And then we started to come across a square corner pit, which is different. And then
Mm,
there were steps going down. So straight away, that was something a lot more exciting. But
mm-hmm,
it took quite a long time to get into it because we had to, the sort of stuff that was in it was really concrete-like. So it was very slow work, carefully
mm-hmm,
excavating all the steps and then some tunnels. And then there was a sort of collapsed chamber, largely collapsed chamber, which is the tomb chamber. That was all quite sort of painstaking work, and we still didn't know whose tomb it was. When we got to the tomb chamber, we saw a star ceiling and bits of scenes from the Amduat, which are indicative of King's tomb. We still don't know which king,
mm-hmm,
but eventually we found a few bits of broken alabaster jars. Alabaster's very fragile. That had bits of name on, but it still took probably another 6 months to find enough bits to piece it together and get the names out.
mm-hmm.
So it's been a pretty slow burn. Yeah.
For anybody watching who's unfamiliar, can you tell us a bit more about who Tutmosis II was and why he is important, or exactly why it's important that we found his tomb?
Thutmose II is quite interesting because he was not known before. There was a mummy found in the Del Bahri Kush that was attributed to him, but it's not entirely clear that it was him.
Mm-hmm,
And none of his grave goods, until we found these pieces of broken jar, were known
mm-hmm,
anywhere. So it suggested that he was still buried somewhere and that location has yet to be found. So that's one reason why it's interesting. And historically, he's somewhat overshadowed by his wife, Hatshepsut, who became king after his death.
mm-hmm,
And his father, Thutmose I, and his son, Thutmose III, who had a bigger impact on history, if you like. As far as we know, he was very young when he came to the throne and didn't reign for very long. He died quite young. He had two
mm-hmm.
children during that time, but that's about all we know. That's one of the reasons why they cast doubt on the identification of the mummy, because the mummy seems to be a bit too old for a man who died so young.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any theories or thoughts as to why he would have been buried separately from the rest of the tombs that are in the Valley of the Kings? Because it's kind of, he's at the right of the beginning of the dynasty that starts using the Valley of the Kings, correct?
Yeah. We don't know. I mean, the earliest king to be buried in the Valley of the Kings is Thutmose III.
Okay.
So we're not sure what the pattern was. Before that,
Mm,
the tomb of three foreign wives of Thutmose III was known from the adjacent valley to where we found Thutmose II's
mm,
burial. So it's clear that in the early 18th dynasty, they're using much more of the mountain. They're spreading out. That there isn't this sense of concentration into the Valley of the Kings. I mean,
mm-hmm,
that's one of the things I'm really interested in. It's what's the ancient environment.
mm-hmm,
And there's in the 18th dynasty, people were spread out way into the mountain and the valleys. And what we're beginning to suspect is it was much wetter then. So while it's quite sort of hard desert now, it would have been much more attractive place. And they described the burying places as beautiful places.
mm-hmm,
And it's quite likely that these wadis had a bit more vegetation. They seem to have chosen places where there were sort of trickling streams to put the tombs kind of behind the veil, if you like, of the waterfall.
mm,
What we think happened with Thutmose II is things started, climate started to change and the rainfall got a lot heavier. Possibly the vegetation had been dying back, so you've got sudden rain storms rather than gentle rains and gently trickling springs, and then it sort of flooded into the tomb, which is
mm-hmm,
meant why it had to be sort of abandoned. And that we think that the grave goods were rescued because we've got the broken remnants, so we infer that they were put in, but they seem to being taken back out again quite early on.
mm-hmm. And so, in that sense, there's still like a bit more to be found because I've read that we now that your team thinks that it might have been relocated to another tomb somewhere else, and that you think you might know where that is. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
We know it was taken out. Most of the other grave goods haven't been found, so we suspect it's still buried somewhere. We don't know where, but in the sort of exercise of trying to understand the area around the current tomb as far as possible, we're finding a lot of made ground with New Kingdom material in it. So yeah, we haven't got to the bottom of the bottom of the mystery yet. It's tempting to think that the second tomb is there somewhere, but we don't know that yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it gives you more to look for and more
Yeah,
research
yeah,
and more work to continue doing. Well, that's really
absolutely.
exciting. Thank you so much for coming on. That was really interesting to learn about. And please do keep in touch if you guys find anything else. I'd love to hear about it, and I'm sure everybody else would too.
All right, thank you very much, Rachel.
Wow, I'm sure you'll agree with me that this is a really impressive discovery, with hopefully even more to come. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can keep up to date with this story, as I will obviously cover any further developments. From the royal tombs of Egypt, we now head to Chongqing in China, where archaeologists have unearthed what is now believed to be the earliest section of the Great Wall, which, while we refer to it as a singular construction, it is actually a series of fortifications built, added to, and reinforced over a period of 2,000 years. Now, an excavation conducted from May to December 2024 has uncovered an area of roughly 1,100 square meters, the first proactive excavation of the Qi Great Wall after years of preliminary surveys. Previously, it was thought that the Qi Great Wall was begun in 441 BCE. It is the earliest and longest segments of China's ancient fortifications, extending approximately 641 kilometers across central Shandong. The recent excavations revealed distinct phases of its construction. The oldest phases date to the spring and autumn period and were about 10 meters thick and show evidence of their foundation possibly dating even further back to the late Zhou dynasty, which reigned from 1046 to 771 BCE. This pushes back previous estimates of the wall's age by approximately 300 years. Later walls, mainly from the Warring States period, showed far more advanced construction techniques, with the most robust phase being over 30 meters in width. The final phase is well preserved and constructed with using fine yellow earth compacted with metal rammers for durability. Other discoveries from this excavation include residential structure remains under the early walls in the northern excavation area, which demonstrates that the walls served not only just defensive purposes, but were also linked to the daily lives of local inhabitants. All this work has served to help us answer, or at least begin to answer, long-standing questions regarding the age, construction techniques, and function of the Qi Great Wall. Now we go to Norway, where archaeologists have found fragments of the world's oldest rune stone at the Svingerud burial field. Runes were the letters used to write Germanic languages before the adoption of the Latin alphabet. However, the development of runic writing and the practice of inscribing runes on stone is one that's really difficult to trace archaeologically. Rune stones are thought to have served both ceremonial and practical purposes. Intriguingly, the stone fragments found here were found in separate graves that were investigated over the course of 3 field seasons, and subsequent laboratory analysis allowed the research team, when they were looking at the fragments, to fit together these different pieces like a jigsaw puzzle. By piecing together the fragments, they were able to identify several runic inscriptions. Some were carved with multiple runic sequences, while others contained ambiguous markings. This suggests that they may have been engraved at different times by various individuals, and indicates that the original large stone, which has been called the whole stone, was intentionally fragmented, scattered, and incorporated into later burials. It's possible that the stone was initially intended to mark one grave, but was then fragmented to commemorate subsequent burials. Radiocarbon dating of the cremated human remains and charcoal found alongside the fragments provides a rare, firm date range of 50 BCE to 275 CE for the context in which the runestone fragments were found, and also makes them the oldest examples discovered to date. This raises questions about the nature of the unidentified symbols. Could they potentially bridge the gap between ornamental script and early writing? Was the fragmentation and scattering of runestones a means to connect different graves across the grave field? Were they related? What was the connection between these people? Hopefully, further research and discoveries from this site will help us to answer these questions. More Roman-era discoveries take us next to London in the UK. There, archaeologists working in the basement of 85 Gracechurch Street, ahead of a planned redevelopment, have uncovered the remains of London's first ever basilica, which was probably built during the late 70s or 80s CE during the governorship of Agricola. But what is a basilica, I hear you asking? Well, these were initially a large public building with multiple functions that was usually built alongside a Roman town's forum. They are typically rectangular with a central nave flanked by 2 or more aisles. During the reign of Emperor Constantine the Great, who decriminalized Christianity, basilicas became the standard model for Christian spaces of congregational worship. In this case, despite what the clickbaity news headlines want you to believe, finding the remains of this historic basilica was not entirely a surprise, as due to decades of research and previous excavations, we already knew that this site stood above the northern end of the building. However, it was difficult to predict how much of the structure, if any of it, survived, undisturbed by both later Roman and more recent construction activity. In order to see what survived, a number of test pits were strategically placed where archaeologists thought the basilica's walls and foundations might have been. And it turns out the team were correct when the test pits revealed massive foundations and walls made of flint, ragstone, and Roman tile. In some areas, it's thought that these are over 10 meters long, 1 meter wide, and 4 meters deep. What makes this discovery even more special is the fact that the team believes that these foundations are within an area of the basilica known as the tribunal. Here, upon a raised stage, magistrates, political leaders, and important officials would have made major decisions about the government of London and possibly beyond. Basically, 2,000 years ago, that spot was the heart of Roman London. As one of the most historically significant pieces of Roman history uncovered in London, the property developer intends to integrate the surviving remains into the updated plans for 85 Gracechurch Street. Archaeologists are working with the site owners and project team to develop proposals for a new exhibition, event space, and an immersive experience to offer visitors a unique opportunity to experience what it would have been like to stand on the stage of early Roman London. An updated planning application incorporating the new space is expected to be submitted in spring 2025, and if approved, full excavations on the site will take place, which may reveal further details. And the best way to find out about those further details is to subscribe. Our next find takes us to North Rhine-Westphalia in Germany, where the discovery of a gold and iron Roman-era box lock has been released. The artifact was originally found in 2023 during a metal detecting survey in a field. After the detectorist reported his find to the local authorities, it was identified as a Roman box lock dating to the 3rd or 4th century CE. It is entirely unique in Europe, as it is a miniature version of a standard Roman box lock, which are usually much larger and consist of iron or bronze parts. This version is smaller than this £1 coin that I'm holding up. It's tiny. It's constructed from 2 cylindrical metal sheets sealed with lids and secured with rivets. The outer casing is also intricately decorated with 2 circumferential rows of opposing openings. A 3D CT scan revealed cross-sections of the internal iron components, including a frame with a spring, a presumed guide rail, a bolt, a base plate, and a pin. It also showed that the mechanism is largely complete but damaged because someone had obviously poked around in the lock at one point in time, probably to break it open or to remove a blockage. The lock was probably used to protect a chest or similar items, similar to what we use in today's jewelry boxes. Archaeologists think that the lock may have reached North Rhine-Westphalia through trade or as a souvenir brought home by a member of the local elite returning from Roman military service. Using comparative finds and the detailed imaging results, experts were able to reconstruct the lock's mechanism and its missing key. A restorer even created a fully functional replica of the lock, scaled up to 4 times its original size. This extraordinary find shows the high level of craftsmanship of the provincial Roman blacksmith and metalworking trade, and at the same time gives us new clues about the relationships between local elites in Westphalia and the Roman Empire, as well as the possible local significance of the site where it was found. Now we head to the state of Oaxaca in Mexico, where a new LiDAR survey has revealed the remains of a vast fortified city. The site is called Giengola, and it was built in the 14th and 15th centuries by the Zapotecs, a civilization which originated in the central valleys of Oaxaca in the late 6th century BCE and later migrated south in the late post-classic period. Depictions of the site by the Spanish describe it as the fortification where the Zapotec army emerged victorious against an invasion by the Mexica that happened in 1497. Until now, the full extent of the site was unknown, and it had previously been characterized as a fortress for housing soldiers and troops from the nearby town of Tuantepec. Now, a new LiDAR scan and archaeological survey project has shown the fortress characterization to be incorrect. The new survey has identified a large settlement that covered 360 hectares and containing over 1,100 buildings. The study also found 4 kilometers of defensive walls, an extensive road network, and an urban layout with temples, ball courts, and distinct neighborhoods for elites and commoners. This research enhances our understanding of the intricate social, political, and economic dynamics between the elite and commoner neighborhoods. This research enhances our understanding of the intricate social, political, and economic dynamics between the elite and commoner neighborhood, or barrio, organizations in late post-classic Mesoamerica, as well as also helping us understand similarities and continuities within barrios during the colonial period, which can lead to further investigations and expand our knowledge about how Mesoamerican settlements transformed after European contact. Lastly, for this month, we go to Milan in Italy and the Sforza Castle, located at the center of the city, where research has uncovered a series of underground tunnels. Construction of the castle began in the 1300s, and over the centuries it was extensively expanded, modified, and partly demolished. Today, only about 1/6 of the original castle remains. There are still underground passages, some of which are open for public visits, but it's long been rumored that there was more to find. Now, a new study has used advanced ground-penetrating radar, also known as GPR, and laser scanners to generate a detailed map of the castle's subterranean structures, and has also revealed cavities and passageways just a few feet below the surface, confirming the existence of long speculated underground routes, including rooms on a second underground level and an additional passage running parallel to a known one. One of the newly found tunnels is believed to have been commissioned by Ludovico Sforza, regent and then Duke of Milan from 1480 to 1500, used to connect the castle with the Basilica where his beloved wife was buried. Historical accounts suggest that Ludovico, grief-stricken after his wife's death in 1497, used this secret passage for private visits to her tomb. The tunnel may have also served as an escape route in times of siege. Interestingly, a lot of the headlines I saw for this story attributed their design of these tunnels to Leonardo da Vinci, who worked under Ludovico and was deeply involved in military engineering and fortification designs. His surviving sketches include depictions strikingly similar to the underground passageways uncovered here. However, despite what these headlines say, it is currently not possible to determine the exact extent of his involvement in the construction of these tunnels. The research team have worked with Sforza Castle authorities to help digitize the fortress's complex and multi-layered architecture to create a digital twin of the castle, which not only represents the current appearance, but also allows you to explore the past, recovering historical elements that are no longer visible. Very little physical excavation can be done in the tunnels due to planning restrictions and the risks to the structural integrity of the building above. Instead, researchers plan to implement augmented reality and virtual tours, allowing visitors to explore these hidden passageways digitally. That's it for our top discoveries this month. Which one was your favorite? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this segment, please don't forget to like the video. Now we're going to move on to current news and events. Our only current news story this month is one that myself and many others find deeply alarming, as it would seem that archaeology in the US is under attack. President Trump has issued an executive order declaring a national energy emergency, which is a manufactured crisis designed to bypass critical permitting reviews. Under this executive order, the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation is directing federal agencies to sidestep Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, a cornerstone of preservation law that has safeguarded American tribal, community, and national heritage for decades. This order means that agencies can suspend consideration of historic properties for any project an agency claims is related to energy production, regardless of its actual necessity. US archaeologists are concerned that this will result in agencies fast-tracking projects without public input, meaningful consultation with tribes, or any obligation to avoid or mitigate damage to historic sites, sacred places, and cultural landscapes. If left unchallenged, these directives could result in irreversible destruction to the places that define American history and identity. In addition to this, the Department of the Interior has laid off over 2,300 people, including many archaeologists. The scale of the work that is done to protect and preserve U.S. heritage by these archaeologists is immense. For example, Bureau of Land Management archaeologists oversee 244 million acres with approximately 217 staff members. The National Park Service manages more than 80 million acres with fewer than 270 archaeologists. Prior to these layoffs, there were already too few archaeologists on hand to handle the workload, and reducing this critical workforce will exacerbate an already pressing issue. Without enough staff, historic and cultural resources in the U.S. will not receive the protection and interpretation required by federal law. This will result in an irretrievable loss of knowledge and diminishment of America's past, which hopefully everyone can agree nobody wants. Not to mention that it further drives people away from archaeology as a career and deprives archaeologists of jobs that they've spent their whole lives cultivating, doing that at the expense of their knees, other joints, and financial security. It really is a travesty that has the potential to negatively impact American archaeology for decades to come, and I'm really hoping that it's not going to be as bad as it looks like it's going to be, but who knows. That's the end of current news and events. We'll close our program today talking about archaeology in entertainment and pop culture. First, the remastered versions of Tomb Raider 4, 5, and 6, otherwise known as The Last Revelation, Chronicles, and The Angel of Darkness, have now been released on all major gaming platforms. If you've been tuning into the channel for a while, you may have seen my live streams playing the remastered Tomb Raider 1 released last year, which took me a long time because I was really bad at it. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm hoping to get back to gaming live streaming soon, and with some luck, I'll get to this new batch before 2026 and I can let you know my thoughts. Who knows? Wish me luck. Our second story comes from YouTuber extraordinaire Mr. Beast, who released in February his video about spending 100 hours inside the 3 pyramids of Giza. At the time of making this video, it had over 140 million views. I haven't watched it yet, but after this video, I am going to, and I'm live streaming my reaction to it. If you stay here until the end, you should get redirected straight to the stream. Otherwise, it will also be linked at the end of this video. Last but not least is the news that Chris Nolan is in the midst of filming his next epic, The Odyssey, starring Matt Damon as Odysseus, which is set to come into theaters on July 17th, 2026. The costuming and history online community already have strong feelings about the first image that's been released of Matt Damon in character, but I'm going to reserve my judgment until we actually have something a bit more substantial to analyze. I mean, it can't be as bad as 2004's Troy, right? Right? All right, everyone, time to pack up our finds and hang up our shovels for today. What was your favorite story? Is there anything that I missed? Don't forget to comment, like the video, or subscribe to the channel before you leave. If you're feeling extra generous, you can give me a super thanks, go to my Ko-fi. If you're feeling extra generous, you can give me a super thanks or go to my Ko-fi page and give me a small donation. They take the smallest cut out of everyone that I've looked at, including YouTube. If you're looking for a more tangible return than my eternal gratitude, have a look at my Redbubble shop and get a sticker, a t-shirt, a hat, or a mug with your favorite archaeology slogan. All the designs there have been made by me. Taking a few seconds to support me in any way that you can, even just watching to the end of this video, helps grow the channel and promotes quality heritage content that is well-sourced, researched, and presented by somebody who is an expert in this subject. It shows the algorithm that people are interested in real archaeology. Thank you so much for watching. Stay curious, and I hope to see you on my next adventure inside archaeology.